Who should actually buy the Brother TD4750TNW label printer? Who can safely skip it, and does it justify its price for the everyday office or workshop? You'll hear a lot of talk about high resolution and Wi-Fi when you start looking at label makers, but the real question is whether those features translate into smoother daily operations or just add another gadget to your desk. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm going to walk you through the practical side of owning this machine so you can decide if it's the right fit for your workflow. When I first heard about the TD4750TNW, the first hesitation was the price tag. It sits in a range where a typical desktop label printer could cost half as much, yet Brother markets this model as a facility and safety solution. That usually means you're buying into a promise of higher durability, faster turnaround, and the ability to handle a mix of label sizes without constantly changing rolls. The risk, however, is ending up with a printer that feels over-engineered for a small office, or a cutter that adds complexity you never needed. My research started with the product's core claim, 300 dpi thermal transfer printing, plus a built-in cutter that can trim labels automatically. I then cross-checked a few forums where small business owners discuss label workflow, to see whether those features actually cut down on time and error. Let's imagine two typical scenarios. In a medium-sized manufacturing plant, the safety manager has to produce hundreds of labels each week: hazard warnings, equipment identifiers, and temporary job site tags. The workflow usually involves pulling a spreadsheet, formatting each entry, printing, and then manually cutting each strip. This is a recipe for inconsistencies and wasted time. The TD4750TN's built-in cutter changes the equation. Once you feed the roll, the printer can slice each label cleanly without you reaching for scissors. The 6" per second print speed means you can churn out a batch of 100 labels in under 2 minutes, which is a noticeable productivity boost when you consider the cumulative labor hours saved over months. Contrast that with a small law firm that needs to print only a handful of file folder labels a week. For them, a basic thermal transfer printer that plugs into a USB port and prints at 3 IPS would be perfectly adequate. The added Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities of the Brother device feel like nice-to-have extras, but they don't justify the higher upfront cost. In such a setting, the cutter could actually become a hassle if you rarely need it. Each time you switch label roll types, the machine requires a short calibration pause, and that can interrupt a quick printing task. Now, about connectivity. The TD4750TN supports USB, LAN, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. In practice, the Wi-Fi works best when the printer sits on a stable 2.4 GHz network. I've seen users report occasional drops when their office router is overloaded. The Ethernet port offers a more reliable backbone for environments where multiple computers send jobs simultaneously, such as a shipping department with several terminals. I tested the Bluetooth pairing with a Windows laptop, and it was straightforward. Enable the printer in the Bluetooth settings, select Brother TD4750, and the driver installed automatically. The real benefit shows up when you have a mobile device, say, a tablet, running the Brother Label Suite software on the floor to print a label on the spot without walking back to a workstation. That flexibility can be a game changer for field technicians who need to attach a safety tag while standing on a ladder. Speaking of software, the package includes Brother's Label Suite Design Suite. It's not a full-blown graphics editor, but it does let you pull data from an Excel file and auto-populate label fields, which is exactly the kind of workflow a bulk label user wants. The interface is a bit dated, think Windows 7 era dialogues, but it's functional. If you're comfortable with a spreadsheet and can tolerate a few clicks to align margins, you'll get the job done. For someone expecting a modern drag-and-drop canvas, the learning curve may feel unnecessary. What about the spool handling? The drop-in spindleless design is a subtle but worthwhile improvement. Traditional label printers use a spindle that you have to thread manually, which can be fiddly and sometimes leads to misfeeds. The Brother unit lets you just drop the roll onto the tray, and the sensors guide the paper through. In a busy environment, that means less downtime when you need to change a roll. However, you do lose the ability to use very small label rolls. Brother recommends a minimum of 2 inches of width, so if you work with narrow specialty labels, you'll need to double-check compatibility before you buy. One of the strongest practical points is the cutter's durability. Early generation cutters on comparable printers often jam after a few hundred cuts, especially when using heavy stock vinyl. The TD4750TN's cutter is rated for high-volume use, and in the limited field reports I found, users mentioned that the blade stays sharp for months if you replace it only when you notice a slight ragged edge. That said, the cutter does add a small maintenance task: you have to clean the blade area.